Hello, this is the first video that I'm going to be doing over the next month or so. I've got about 100 cockatoos in a tree behind me, so we'll see if we're actually able to record this. I promise you they weren't this noisy a minute ago. Okay, they've moved on. So, over the next month, towards the end of our Project Hen Haven campaign, I'm going to be making a video every day about our plans, about where the money's eventually going to go, and it's going to be a way to keep my plans in check for myself, and it'll also help you, the donors and supporters, to see what we're planning. So at the moment we don't have a property in mind, but because we're nowhere near our fundraising goal yet. We've done amazing, like we've got $40,000, but we need to get to 150,000 before we can start like looking at properties and seeing what we can actually get. But let's just say what I'm doing for the purpose of this exercise, whilst I tell you the kind of thing we can create, is to imagine a small house with about an acre of land in a kind of rectangular shape, fairly clear. We would of course be making sure it wasn't in a major bushfire prone area or a flood zone. So what I would be imagining is, because the more rural you get, the more predator issues you can get. So we want to ensure that each enclosure that we have is fully predator proof, and foxes can rip through wire, they can rip through nets. So we want to make sure the whole thing is surrounded by galvanized steel, including being dug into the ground and with a skirt of wire that comes out as well. The inside of the enclosure I want to make as interesting as possible. So I'm thinking of them as enclosed gardens as opposed to coops or enclosures. So each group or flock of animals will feel like they're in a garden as opposed to a cage, but they will be entirely safe. I'm thinking if we had 1 acre that we'd be able to create 8 of these enclosures, so that different animals could be separated and have their needs met. So just off the top of my head, before I go into a bit more detail, I'll cover what the enclosures would probably be used for. So the first enclosure I would think of as our jungle enclosure. This is where our permanent hens would stay. You know, like we've got Frida and Kim and Juniper. They're all here in the garden with me, just none of them want to come on camera right now. These are the hens who are staying with us because they either had a special rescue circumstance or they have permanent special needs. Nearly all of our special needs flock are on implants to stop them laying eggs. And so they stay with us, but they're very able-bodied. They're able to live a normal hen's life. So we want to create an area for them which is as much like a jungle as possible. They originate from red jungle fowl, so we want to emulate that in their enclosure and just give them the most wonderful garden to explore. So think branches and shrubs and dust bathing areas and just as much exploring as possible. Then we'll have an enclosure for the higher needs hens, like Ariel, who's got some brain damage. I will go into more details of what her enclosure will involve in another video, but basically we want less things in there. We want less things for her to trip over or bump into. The same with Matilda, our little blind hen. Ariel's like her seeing eye hen, and they stay together. But we also want to make sure they're entirely protected from rain, because Ariel and Matilda both do really badly in the rain. We want to make sure food and water is very easy for them, but that there's no open water, so that there's no chance of drowning. And we want to give them plenty of space, plenty of dust bathing space. Hello, Kaiho. She's just popped in to say hello. But whilst they can still explore, but they're not going to bump into things and get overwhelmed. So they're going to be entirely safe with that. So that's another enclosure. That may be combined also with where the guinea pigs will be, or the quails, and the other very kind of, the animals that need that super high protection from predators, even rats. Like we have to make sure that there's no way that rats can even get into the enclosure. And then we would have our ex-meat industry chickens enclosure. Now the reason that needs to be separate is because they need a special diet. So their diet, we need to make sure they haven't really got access to the fatty seeds and things like that. Whereas the other chickens will have access to food all day, these guys have to have it kind of sprinkled out at intervals to try and keep their weight down. And they might have more treats like heads of lettuce, pumpkin, things like that, rather than a constant supply of pellets or layers mash or seed. So we don't really want them in the same area as the other chickens. And for them, they need an area where there's no ramps, because of, as they get quite heavy, because they've been bred to gain so much weight for the meat industry. We also want to make sure that there's plenty of area for them to exercise, and we want to make sure that they've got an area in there that is really cool in the summer. So possibly a mister system, or other cooling devices as well. I mean, they'll always be brought into the air conditioning if needed, but if we can keep them outside as much as possible, then that's ideal. If there's an inside area, we'll be having thick padded yoga mats on the floor to help their feet, because they're very prone to pressure sores on their feet. And all of this can be done. They'll also probably need more water bowls because they get very thirsty. So all of these things can be done because they'll have their own enclosure. And then we have our duck area. Now that will obviously have ponds, and which will be able to be walked in and walked out, so little animals, if anyone does get in there, or insects, they won't drown. And that's an area where we don't have to worry about it becoming wet for the chickens. Look at this girl, Kaiho's coming to see us. Hello, she won't stay on my lap long, will you? Oh, I might, no. So, where were we up to? The ducks. So that would be their area, and again, it would just be, we try to make that as interesting as possible to them and meeting their needs. And then we want to have the foster enclosures, which allow us to foster and to rehabilitate and rehome. And those enclosures are very much like the jungle bird enclosures, but just with less height, because birds, when they come out of cages, they can be really calcium deficient, and if, say, they jump down from a high perch or a branch, they've actually been known to shatter their legs, to have breaks. So we want to minimize the height in those enclosures, but we also want to give them lots of things to explore and kind of give them that in between when they've just come out of the battery cage, where we can rehabilitate them, check their health, and then they go to their forever home. So and we have at least 2 of those, so we can have overlapping rescues, and it'll be really fun creating those areas. And then we want to have a flight aviary. So in the house we have Raphael, the Indian ringneck, who was rescued from a neglect situation where he was caged for 13 years and wasn't let out. And we have Robin the pigeon. So I'm thinking if they had a flight aviary where they had a lot more space to fly around, possibly near the house, so they could come in the house if they wanted to sometimes. But we could also introduce other species. We could rescue more animals, so we have more friends of their species, so more pigeons, more Indian ringnecks. And give them the height that they want with their flying areas. Like Robin loves sitting up on the ceiling fan, so he likes to have really high up perches, and creating that perfect area for them. And then I think that leaves one enclosure. Let me see on my list who I've got here. Oh yes, of course, the boys. So this really depends on where we get our property. Some areas, if it is only an acre, the neighbours may still be too close to have roosters. We really want to though, so I really hope we do find a place and have enough money to get somewhere. We've got enough space from neighbours where we can rescue the boys, because at the moment we average about 3 emails every day from people that want to surrender or have found dumped roosters. Even now we have Cody, who is with our ex-meat industry chickens up the top of the garden, who is a rooster. He just hasn't started crowing yet. So we really need to find somewhere where we can help those boys, and that would run in conjunction with our education programs against hatching projects. So if you can imagine all of these enclosures with a path going down the middle, and then planted around them would be herbs like rosemary and mint, which help keep rodents away, and also parsley, because the bunnies and the guinea pigs, they adore it. So it would be a really good money saver to grow plenty of our own. And then at the back of the property we'd have the compost heap, where of course there'd be lots of mucking out and lots of things that have to be disposed of, and we'd have more veggie garden. So you can kind of imagine how that would work. We would also have inside every enclosure there would be a bench, so people can sit. If the animals in there are suitable for visitors, the people could sit inside and spend time with them, because we know it's not nice to go grabbing at animals. You want them to come to you. So sitting on a bench and letting them come to you and preen your preen your clothes and things like that is really lovely, or to watch animals. Hens take their very first steps after they've been liberated. Like you, Kaiho, she's making her way over again. She'll probably just come into the camera. She's preening my trouser leg, but she's just off camera, aren't you? There you go, there she is. You can see her little beak. Can't you, sweetie? Yes, hello. She's so gorgeous. So we'd also have a double door on each enclosure. So you have the first door that you walk through, and then you have to close that and open another one, just to make sure, especially with the fly aviary birds, that people don't get out and then become exposed to hawks or foxes. And nearer the house, we'll have an area like a room or a caravan or something where volunteers can hang out, where, you know, we've got some basic amenities and just somewhere to chill out if people have been helping out with the animals. I will go into more detail about different enclosures with you in different videos, but I wanted to kind of paint a picture of the overall plan. And part of it is also education, which won't come for a little while because it will have to be set up. But the idea is that every enclosure will have information about the animals. So their names, what they've been through, their story, maybe their before picture if they used to look very different. And there may be some other learning things as well, such as an old battery cage to show where the animals used to live. Maybe even a scale one for humans, so that kids can get inside and see what it's like. Hello, Frida. I've got Kim pecking at my trousers and Frida pecking at me too. There's actually quite a few hens around me, but they're all just off camera. Oh, there's Cece. Excuse me. So for each enclosure there'd be different things so that people could learn about the industry that these animals have come from, and it would be small enough that you could really walk around the paths fairly quickly, but you could also spend time sitting and being with each animal. A big part of it compared to what we do now with the rentals is that people would be able to come in, whether volunteering or visiting with the school, and not have to come through the house. So the idea would be to come through a side gate or something, and you could get to the enclosures and see the animals and hear their stories as well. We also really need to think about security and the fact that there are people out there who don't like sanctuaries, who don't like animals particularly that much, and that means we would be looking at security cameras, signs, lots of different things to make sure that the animals are kept safe. So as well, in each enclosure there would be a volunteer area where the animals' feed would be, where some cleaning out tools would be, and also information about the animals, so their names, any health issues, things to monitor. So it would be, I'm just thinking it would be a really nice setup. Not only would that allow us to, because right now we're totally full, like we were totally full, and then we took in another 3 chickens who were found outside someone's house, so we had to divide off an area. We can't create any more enclosures in this garden because it's rented, unfortunately, and the enclosures that we do set up have to be temporary, so they have to be able to be taken down, and that means that they're not what we really need for the animals. We want to put the animals first when it comes to the design. I'm hoping to find a volunteer landscape designer who can help us with some of this, like getting the plans in order. Hello, Kim's here. She's just out of view. I'll just pick her up for a second so you can see. Oh, hello. She says, I don't really want to be picked up, thank you. So yeah, there's a number of things. I'll just check that I haven't missed anything really obvious. Oh yes, that's one thing I did want to mention just before I finish up this first video, is the art, and that's another way of educating and kind of including a different aspect of animal activism, as well as just some nice colour around the place. So incorporating art, the first thing will be just purely for acknowledgement of our donors and for some colour on some of the walls or the water tank or whatever it may be that we have as far as the setup, we will have our wall or walls of Chook champions. So everyone who's donated to our project Hen Haven and has selected that perk, you're going to have the most fun day where we'll get a bunch of people together with some paints, and we're just going to put your messages, your names onto this wall, and just make a beautiful like memorial and kind of thank you to everybody that's donated and everyone that's made it possible. And I want that kind of theme to carry throughout the sanctuary. So if there's a wall, there will be a mural on it eventually. We're so lucky to have some amazing vegan artists within the community, and I think that just displaying their work along with animal rights messages would be a really great addition to the sanctuary. And I will go in a separate video, I'll go into some of the education programs I was thinking, such as the program to stop hatching projects in schools and to educate schools about preschools, why they're not a great idea. Hi Gretel. And that would kind of be in conjunction with sanctuary visits and things like that. So there'll be lots more to come in the videos. I hope that this has given you a bit of an idea of what I'm thinking. The more space we have, the better. The more things we can do in the future. I haven't covered any of the financial plan in this video either, and how we sustain that, but that's something I can either answer if you're interested, or I can make another video on that. So please do feel free to ask any questions about the project Hen Haven and our plans for it, because I've really just touched the surface here. But I will be making another video tomorrow and each day of this month on different aspects of the hen rescue or the Hen Haven. So thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to donate, get your name on that wall of Chook champions, just go to our Chuffed page, chuffed.org/project/henhaven, or you can just go to henrescue.org/donate and make a donation there. I'm getting some serious preening here. Not sure if you can see, but I've got Gretel here, I've got Kim here, surrounded by all these girls. Let me show you. Let me see. Oh, aren't they so gorgeous? That's one side. So lovely. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.